Hey guys, what's up? I'm Speo with the Voice of Reason, and today I want to talk a little bit about drum layering, as it's the key to big and fat dubstep drums or drums of any other electronic musical genre. I've created a little drum loop just to put the drums I've created for this tutorial into a context. Now first off, I want to talk a little bit about the kick. Now for a good kick sound, you usually want two different samples. One that supplies the lower end of the kick, and another one that gives the kick some sparkle and pop. And in my case right here, we have this sample here for the lows, and this one right here for the sparkle. Now as you can see, I routed the first kick sample, which is for the lows, out the master output and into an equalizer right here. And as you noticed, I'm only using the left out and input, so it's a mono signal, because you usually don't want a stereo signal on your low end. So it's routed into this equalizer and then right into the mixer that combines the two kick samples down here. And as you can see on this equalizer, I've boosted the lows like crazy, so we have a really fat basis for the kick sound. I also turned on the low cut, because with so many lows, you're bound to have some frequencies under 30 Hz, which will create some unwanted rumble. So as you can hear, when I turn off the equalizer, this kick is actually quite weak. But with the crazy boost on the lows, which is, by the way, with the parameter 1 on 57 Hz with a gain of 14 dB and a Q of 1.9, it has a lot more lows to offer. I also cut off the highs on this lower kick sample, because as I said, the second kick sample, which is layered to the first, will contribute these higher sparkly sounds. And this way, if I cut them off the lower sample, they won't interfere with each other. So on the second kick, which I routed out the output 3 and 4, as you can see down here, into the second equalizer down here, and then into the compressor and back in the mixer. This one is for the sparkle and pop. So what I did was I scooped out the lows of this kick so it does not interfere with the boom down here with the low kick. And I added some high frequencies up at 8.2 kHz with a gain of 8.6 dB and a Q of 1.3, which just gives it some more sparkly tonalities. Then this kick runs into a compressor, which tightens it up and supplies the necessary pop for a good kick sound. This compressor has some usual settings, so the threshold is at -28 dB, the ratio up at 10:1, the attack up at 70 milliseconds, which is pretty important, so the first transient has 70 milliseconds where it can play without being compressed, and that creates the pop. And I brought the release all the way down, so if the kick is played in quick succession, it will still pop. And then this runs into the mixer again to be mixed with the lower kick. If we now link both kicks together on the Kong, we can play this kick sample and it sounds pretty awesome, I'd say. It has the necessary whoomp and bomb in the lows and still has a sparkle and a pop in the highs, and that's due to the layering of the two different kick samples. Now, let's move on to the snare. The snares are normally a little more complicated than the kick, because you want a really nice popping sound, but you don't want it to hurt in your ears, and you still want some highs up in the place as well. So let me quickly go over what I did for this snare. As you can see, we have two different drum sounds as well, just like with the kick. And the first one, I wanted to be really airy and have a focus on the high end, as you can hear. So what I did was I took this sample right here, which without processing sounds like this. So it's quite a weak sample. I routed it out the master output into this equalizer right here, and then into the mixer where it gets mixed with the other snare sound. And I scooped out the frequencies around 400 Hz, because that's just where the wooden kind of unwanted frequencies are on a snare usually. In this, oh wait, I have it on bypass. So, well, in this example you can't really hear it, but usually with a snare there can be some unwanted frequencies at about 400 Hertz, which just weaken the sound overall if you run it into a compressor. So I've just scooped them out and then boosted some highs right here, because I wanted this first sample, this first snare sound to be really airy and kind of supply some high-end frequencies to this sound. Then we have the second snare sound, which, as you can hear, supplies the lower pop of a snare. And it's routed out the 3 and 4 outputs right into the second equalizer and then into this mixer down here. And as you can see, I've boosted some frequencies at about 200 Hertz, which is where the pop of a usual snare sits, with a gain of 10 dB and a parametric Q of 2.0. And that just gives it this nice kind of dull sound. And then I scooped out all the highs because, like I said, I focused on the airy highs with the first snare sample. Now on their own, these two snare sounds sound pretty weak and they don't offer that much. But when you mix them together, they start to sound pretty awesome. And what I did then was just chucking a reverb under this mixer, which auto routes up as a send effect. And then I just brought the aux up a bit on the higher snare with less pop. So we have some nice little reverb in the back. Then I routed this whole signal into a tape distortion unit and a compressor to make it pop even more. The compressor has the usual settings, a threshold at -17 dB, ratio at 7.3 to 1, and the attack up at 77 milliseconds, so we have a nice popping sound, and the release down at 50 milliseconds. Now that's it on how to build a nice layered snare and kick sound. I hope this tutorial was useful. If it was, drop a like, that would be much appreciated. I will also be putting up these two samples as .wavs for free direct download in the description. So if you're a lazy ass like me, you'll just have the instant kick sample and snare sample at your fingertips. Okay, that's it. My name's been Speo. This was the Voice of Reason. Have a good one of whatever you're happy.